Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, there we go.
Wait. Hello. Sandy, I need water.
Oh, we're experiencing some technical difficulties.
Uh-oh.
It's unlucky.
And we
Actually, I do
good.
have some left, and you can see it.
All right.
Okay, so
What's up?
this week, due to Catherine being busy and unable to make it, we have decided to do
Oh, you dropped it.
Lore Masters episode on the DM. Because
That's you.
that is me. Because when most people want to get into D&D and they don't have anyone to play with, the really only way they can experience the game is as the DM. I wasn't a player for like the first 2 years of my D&D experience. I was always running the game. It wasn't until I went to the local hobby shop and asked if there's any groups going around that are looking for players to join. Then that was my first time playing. But 2 years before that, I've been only running.
Feels weird to be running it before you play it. I feel like
Yeah.
in like sports, I guess you play before you coach in a way. I know coach is different than D&D or being the master,
Mhm.
but you're still kind of running how the show works in a way as a coach in a way.
The difference with that is it is organized sport.
Yeah.
Where to play, there is leagues where you can join, where you can play. With D&D, yeah, there is leagues, but no one really knows about them. They're all private, and you have to go out of your way to look for them. Like, you can't just go on Google and type in D&D games in my area.
Yeah.
You might get some pretty weird sites. But so that's why with D&D, like, unless you know someone who plays it already and DMs already, chances are you're gonna have to DM. So this episode, we're gonna be taking you through the first steps of running your first session, the common pitfalls, the common stereotypes, and what you should and shouldn't do for your very first session. So before anything, I'm going to open up the floor to you guys to see if you guys have any questions about first time DMing or DMing in general.
How could you be a first-time D&D without knowing
Yeah.
like the monsters and like places names or stuff like
Well,
that?
as far as places and names go, you can easily make that up.
Oh, that's so cool.
Like, there's plenty of useful online tools for name generation. Fantasy name generator is like the big one that everyone uses. And you can easily come up with a name of a town, a city, a country on your own. There's also plenty of pre-made settings you can play in. So we are currently playing in my custom setting that I've been using for about 2 years now. But you can easily play in the Forgotten Realms. You can just play in a no-name setting that's just like, all that there is this town that's called Cobblestone. And the area around it, you can play in that. But there's countless settings for you to play in, whatnot. But as far as monsters go, there's the Monster Man, which is currently buried, so I can't show you guys. But it has all the stats of all the monsters you'll need. It has instructions for using them. Instructions for
So you will need some tools to
yeah, you will
be a
need some
dungeon master.
tools. Yes. Experience
And some dice.
Well, if you're playing D&D or looking at playing D&D, you're gonna have dice.
I don't know. Why not?
How many dice sets do you own?
Okay, I think I own 20 sets of dice. Plastic dice. Then I got a giant bag of miscellaneous dice. And then I have like 5 or 6 sets of metal dice. So I have a lot.
How many do you actually need?
1 set.
Like when you say set, that's like
That's the D20, the D10, the percentile, the D12.
wow, and you have 20
plastics. 20 plastic dice. And I don't use any of them. Except for... I don't know where it is right now, but I have... nope, that's not it. The stuff I use for the game is a set of hot pink dice, which should be around here somewhere. Ah, there it is. These are the ones I use.
Those are cute.
reddish pinkish ones.
No, they're just straight up hot pink.
Oh, nice.
So that's basically what I use. The question before was about the... Yeah, like, without knowing the names of stuff and whatnot. Names of stuff you make up, like I said. The Monster Manual is basically really all you need to run a game. Having the player's handbook and having the Dungeon Master Guide does help, but the most important one for a DM to have, in my opinion, is the Monster Manual. And just with that book alone, you can run countless games. I feel like it's going to be asked the tools you'll need to run a game. Just basically your source books, if any, dice, and a pen and paper. That's really all you need. So,
what's the pen and paper for?
You keep track of like monsters' health, initiative, like that book's buried too. But
Interesting.
so when I have you guys roll initiative before a fight, I will write down just in a column your guys' names, and then in a separate column all the monsters. And as you guys are rolling, I'm rolling initiative for each of the monsters. If I'm running a lot of monsters, like a horde of zombies, I'll split it up into, okay, this is group A of zombies, group B of zombies, group C of zombies. And that's just a lot easier for me to manage. But
what's the best thing about being a dungeon master?
everyone has they get something different out of it. For me, it's I like to tell a story, and I have a rough idea of where the story's going, and I sort of guide you guys there, but I don't know what's going to happen. So it is an adventure for me as well, and that's probably my favorite part about being
like how I killed that baby griffin.
Yeah,
That was an adventure.
That was
You didn't expect that one, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
And that's
it's built different.
like I've ran that encounter or like a similar encounter probably 3 times total now. And each one has ended in a different way.
You're
That's the
welcome.
first one where someone kills the baby. The first time someone killed the monster. It wasn't a griffin, it was something else. I don't remember what. And then the second time they helped the baby. Which is the sort of like the two like ways I see that encounter going. But the baby murder just came out of left field for me. So that was
It
fun.
was fun. You gotta make the viewers happy. You know, I feel like they wanted that. Did it for them.
Say that.
You know, keep my fan base happy.
Did you when you started DMing, did you like watch any Dungeons and Dragons or anything before that, or
Yes.
did you just okay?
I watched Critical Role, which is sort of the biggest D&D show. I watched some Acquisitions Incorporated, which is more of a comedy show, but it is still Dungeons and Dragons. I watched a lot of videos about DMing going into it. So, yeah, I watched a lot before my first session.
Oh, that's what you generally should be doing for first time at anything.
Yeah.
Doing some research, seeing how it's done.
So like, where do you get, like kind of like your inspiration for some of your campaigns
Uh,
and storylines?
a lot of mine comes from music, actually. Like, I listen to a lot of metal, power metal, which is very fantasy inspired. So I can take like a little section of a song and just slowly build and build upon that until it becomes something unique and original. But like, movies are a good one. Video games are a really good one. And it's easy to translate like adventure movies, action movies, fantasy movies, and RPGs into D&D because they're so like coincided with one another. Sometimes books, even though I don't read that much. But there's quite a few good bits of inspiration there. A lot of times it's actually I'll come up with a character that I want to play, and I'll have like their whole backstory set out, and I can like make it so what if that character wasn't there and the party was interacting. With it, and that leads to adventure right there.
So in a way, you could copy like Jumanji.
Yeah,
In a way,
you
I
can
guess, but
totally copy Jumanji.
I'd be Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I think I have the same physique as him a little bit.
Yeah, sure you do.
And Andre might be like Kevin Hart. Short and looks funny. Actually, I don't know. I might be Jack Black. I like him.
Can I be the hot chick?
Of course.
Yeah, that role's reserved for you.
How long?
I don't
I have
know.
no idea.
Someone tell me how long?
I didn't even notice.
I've been talking.
Oh,
Oh my lord. Okay. Well, yeah. I was saying, Zach, I'm pretty sure I'm taller than you.
Nah, I don't know.
Anyways, get back on track. What other questions would you guys have for?
Would you ever consider running a campaign based on John Wick?
No, because
Are you just against dogs? Are you a cat person?
I'm not against dogs, but I am a cat person.
Okay.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Cats over dogs, but like dogs are still pretty high up on the list.
Okay.
So then,
Anyways,
what's in between cats and dogs?
Don't make fun of me for this. All right. I already see it coming. Like, come
You
on,
look
why
like a
would I-
ferret person, Andre.
Would you? What does that even mean?
Just look at yourself.
Anyways, would you ever do a Runeterra based D&D?
Okay, well, first to answer the John Wick question, no, because John Wick is centered around one character.
Yeah, we can have a star.
I
could be the dog.
So I don't typically like to run too many games that are based around one character, as it sort of leaves everyone else to the sidelines. I had one successful campaign where it was the main character and supporting characters, but it wasn't about the main character per se. The main character was the main thing I used to drive the plot, but the campaign was more centered around the side characters and how they interact with the main character. But as for doing one based on League of Legends, it's definitely possible. I have to read a lot into the lore of Runeterra. So.
Interesting.
I think it could potentially be pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. And there's definitely stories that could be told. It's just for me to personally run it, I would want to know more about the lore and so I can run an accurate game. Anything else?
How much do you? Okay, so I understand that there's like a book that's kind of like a manual or a guideline for DMs, right? How often do you have to like go off of that compared to like just your imagination?
I've only ever looked at the magic item section in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and that's pretty much it.
Because I know sometimes we'll be playing, you like have to check something, and you'll like open up the book.
I check rules and the monster stats in the player's handbook.
Mm-hmm.
But as for and monster's manual. But as far as like rulings and whatnot, it's one, if I'm unsure about a ruling, I'll check. I know most of them off the top of my head. Like I said, I've been running the game for like 5 years and been playing for 4.
So would you say that you used it a lot less than you did when you started?
Yeah.
For sure.
Totally.
He's a knowledged man now. He's well seasoned, like a steak.
Yeah. But
That was horrible.
It was, but I didn't even try to make it funny though. It's a bad thing.
so
I feel like we don't know the game enough to know what Dungeon Masters truly do.
okay, that's a good point. So
'Cause I feel like there's more things you do than just create the story.
So from session to session, it's my job to provide the players with ways to interact with the world. It's my job to challenge the players in various ways. So, like, a perfect example of that is the bridge encounter. That isn't meant to challenge your characters. It's meant to challenge the players to see if they can find a way to overcome this obstacle. Whereas combat encounters are meant to challenge the characters, mostly. There's sometimes when more magic gets involved and you fight multiple different types of enemies, where tactics do come in. But for the most part, it's combat encounters challenge the players. Pretty much everything else challenges, or sorry, combat encounters will challenge the characters. Everything else will challenge the players. That's a pretty good rule of thumb to go for. There's some things like traps and skill checks which will challenge the characters, but that's only if the players don't circumvent them beforehand.
Mhm.
So it's my job to challenge the players and characters in different ways. It's my job to tell the story, keep the plot moving. It's my job to make sure the world will keep moving and the player's actions possibly can influence that.
Yeah. So overall, the players control what's happening during the encounters, and then dungeon masters control everything else, basically.
The players... Okay. The players control their characters. And the dungeon master controls how their actions affect the world.
Well, I guess don't you control the things that we're fighting?
Yep.
Like how they move and stuff in a way to challenge us still?
Mhm.
Or the players still?
The best way I can put it, it's you guys are the pebble that's thrown into the pond, and I decide how the ripples go. If that makes sense.
I don't know how good that one is, but
I mean, it's a lot better than your steak analogy, buddy.
oh, that was just saying your Wilson.
And there's a lot of math on the DM side. Like, a lot.
I believe it. But then, like,
So-
how do you know not to put like 6 skeletons against us? But you put 4. That can only beat 6 skeletons in a way if you attack
So-
properly.
There is a part of the game called action economy. It's typically which side has the most actions determines who has the advantage.
Mhm.
So let's say I put you 4 up against 6 skeletons. At the start of the combat, the 6 skeletons will have the advantage. And it's up to the players to determine how to tip the scales. And what we were talking about last stream with spells and crowd control versus damage, if the players can eliminate as many of those available actions as possible, then the players have the scales will tip into the player's side. So that's why you'll see oftentimes combats, it starts out very grindy, hack and slash esque, but as soon as it gets the longer the battle goes, yes, the more players' resources go, but the less enemies there'll be. So the longer the battle goes, typically it goes more in the player's favor. obviously some other things can be added to that mix.
Interesting.
But
There's an what do you call it? Like an attack order, right? In most battle sequences.
yep, that's the initiative order.
Yeah, sure. And like, how do skeletons, for example, get put into that? Is that through the advantage?
The exact same way as you do. They roll initiative.
And that's what you roll. You roll that without us knowing.
Yep. So you guys
Okay.
don't know the order until it happens.
Well, like
Um,
after that first turn, couldn't we, in a way, attack whatever one
Yep.
has the highest initiative to get our 4 attacks first before their 1 or their 2 or 3 or whatever?
Yep. It's totally possible.
I never really thought about that actually until now. You know what? Next week when we attack,
Yeah.
No babies are dying.
I'm the leading commander in the attack.
That's definitely a way to go about combat. It's definitely more of a strategic way.
Oh, definitely. I didn't even think of that
But okay,
funky monkey
So-
stuff.
I'll go into this more in a second. But another way you can answer your question earlier is each monster has a challenge rating, and you add up your total challenge rating, and they're in the Dungeon Master's Guide. There's a chart that's saying, okay, if you have this many players of this level, this is an appropriate challenge rating for them. That's good for new DMs, but there's a lot more factors that can be mixed in there, like the environment, the party's composition, the composition of monsters. When was the party's last long rest, and whatnot. Anyways, like, so there's plenty of resources for combat encounter design. But once you get experience, you sort of you stop thinking of, can they beat it? And you think of, I have no idea how they're going to beat this. And that's a good mindset to have. As long as you don't make it so, oh, I don't know how this group of level 1 heroes are going to take on a dragon. That's not
Together.
That's not really something you think about. It's, oh, I don't know how these heroes are going to take on the 7 goblins at level 1. And that's the game gets surprised. So to go back to your later point of attacking when one has the first initiative, that's a good strategy if you're fighting a bunch of the same enemy. As soon as I add, let's say, you're fighting 5 skeletons and a wizard, that whole dynamic goes out the window. Because the skeletons aren't a big issue, but the wizard is.
Yeah.
So there's an essence of target priority in super tactical combats. I hope that answers your question. I know it was pretty long-winded, but
I like it. I just find D&D, or being a dungeon master, I feel like you gotta, I guess, plan a lot, because you then plan how many people come for each thing, where we're going.
Always plan for everyone to show up. So all my stuff is built around, let's say, 4 people. If I have a party of 4 or a group of 4 players, everything's balanced around 4 players. And let's say one person doesn't show up, I can okay, I'll take out these 3 skeletons.
These 3 skeletons, one person.
For example. if you guys are high enough level, yeah.
Depends on who it is, because like if Andre wasn't here, he took his character, leave us 3 skeletons in.
Add more skeletons.
Okay, dude.
He just hides under bridges anyway.
You would have died if it wasn't for me. What do you mean?
You hit her a thing, bro.
What? I
You
healed
hit her
you.
a bridge. No,
I healed you, and you literally were dead.
No, this was a different fight. That was a different fight.
No, yeah, I know, but you would have died.
That's all you did that fight.
So, well, in this conversation, this debate, of how useful Andre was in the Griffin fight.
It wasn't a fight. He killed a baby.
It's not much of a debate. You didn't do anything.
What about the other
Okay,
Griffin
okay.
fight, huh?
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
so at this point, we'll jump into some pitfalls a lot of new DMs will fall into.
Fighting a lot, probably.
Only combat encounters. That's a very common one.
I like
That's a
that.
mistake I made.
I would be fine playing that as a new player. As a new player, not a new,
Yeah,
new
as a
DM,
new
I'd be fine
player.
with that.
But, like, last week, there was no combat. There almost was, but you guys circumvented that.
Did we?
Mm-hmm. Also,
Yeah, we could have fought the big griffin, but
yeah.
the other two didn't want to.
I wanted to. I remember I
Oh, no.
wanted to.
Oh my god. I saw Zach, like, sneaking around back, and, like, Zach's gonna ruin this whole thing.
You gotta do the same way you did this kid, eh? Woo.
But,
Nah, I'm just
so, only combat encounters. I did that a lot when I first started. Something else I did a lot when I first started is a DMPC, which basically means Dungeon Master player character. So the Dungeon Master has a character in the party that they control. So,
I feel like there could be some bias issues with that.
there is. There can be, and it's different from having an NPC to having a DMPC. NPCs, like the one that's traveling with you right now, all he can do in combat is shoot his little crossbow. And he's not even that good at it. But he's there
And why is he there?
because...
Yeah, useful.
But... And that's not a DMPC, that's the NPC. A DMPC is, there's always someone... There's always this one guy that's the DM controls that's with the party and whatnot. Like, the trap I fell into was, oh, these guys I'm playing with haven't played any, they don't know anything about D&D. I'm going to have a character that goes along with them just to keep them safe. Just
Like
in
a healer.
case, just in case I mess up, I have some way to get them out. Never have a DMPC. Makes the players uninvested. If you want to play, either find a second group as a player, or ask one of your players if they can DM a one-shot for you. Next, let's say I'll go up to Evan and be like, hey, Evan, next week, could you run a one-shot? Or whatever?
I am qualified in every way to do it. I'd be honored, Lucas. Was that convincing enough?
The Lucas part ruined it.
My bad.
Like, that's a way that the DM can experience playing the game for once, because oftentimes they don't get to. Like, what happened with me in my group before COVID happened was I would play on Wednesdays, and then, like, I think it was 3 or 4 people from that group I ran a game for on Mondays. And that happened for about 1.5 years, 2 years. I'm still in that group, and once COVID's over, we're pretty much going to kick right back off where we left off. It's probably new campaigns, because no one remembers what happens, but anyways. The NPCs,
Probably not.
don't do it. A trap that I never fell into, but that did come up, is forcing your players on the railroad. Which is like, basically it's, I have this quest and you're gonna follow it. And that point, you're not creating the story with your players, you're just telling them the story. Which, at that point, they can read a book, you can read a book, and have the exact same amount of fun. So, do you guys have any other questions about pitfalls and traps that a new DM can fall into?
Pardon?
Any questions about pitfalls
trap.
or traps a new DM can fall into?
Huh. No? Okay.
No? Okay.
I don't think so. Because, like, really just being boring or being too, like, action attack focused, or people don't really, like, enjoy it that much.
As a new player, let's say what most people first experience with DMing is, or playing the game as a DM, it's, okay, I'm a brand new DM, first session, all my players haven't played before. And the whole game is just a combat. That makes sense. And oftentimes, new players love that. But as you grow experience as a DM, that kind of gets boring. So then you'll start adding in exploration, roleplay, challenges like the bridge. So just doing all combats as a new DM is good, because that way you learn the base rules. But as you grow and grow as a DM, you're going to start adding more different elements into your game. That kind of leads me on to my next point. Your first game that you run, it's going to suck. It's going to be awful. You may not realize it, your players may not realize it, but it's not going to be a good game. If you guys might have fun, but it won't be as good as it can be. At least in my opinion.
Yeah. Unless you're a prodigy DM, just waiting for you to start to the DMing world.
There is ways to sort of avoid that. There's plenty of pre-written adventures that you can do, like The Lost Mines of Phandelver is an official adventure. I think it's like 7 sessions to complete on average. And that comes with the starting box that you can get, which comes with base rules, comes with pre-made characters, it comes with everything you need to run the game. So a lot of people will do that. I personally think doing a one-shot as your first game is what you want to do. And having your players go through a small dungeon. Hence the name Dungeons and Dragons. You'll have at least one half in the first game.
Yeah.
And you just make it a simple, straightforward dungeon.
Is there like a board I need to do in-person D&D? Is it like a board or you follow?
I have a battle mat that's What a Race right there, just off camera.
Oh, I can't see that.
It's
So like,
currently hanging.
so like, what do you do? Like, if you're in person, being the dungeon master,
Mhm.
and you said you got a battle mat or a dungeon mat or something.
It's essentially just a big mat that has a 1-inch grid on it.
So they get the meters of the feet or whatever.
Yeah, so I'll have.
So like, you would have like little mini figures of like a rogue or something, for example, and you can move it, or they move it and stuff, or no?
This is, yeah, exactly. I'll have stuff like this.
It's not really focusing.
Yeah, no, my webcam's not good for this, but you can kind of make it out. It's a wizard.
Kinda.
It's a female mage. I just painted today. But
So you'll just have those on that mat.
yeah, I'll have
And
those
say
on the
you're-
mat. Have
Say somebody has a female wizard, then move that. Be like, I'm gonna move here,
Yep,
and then a
this
fireball this guy.
yep, this will be the token for them essentially. Think of what we use to actually play with all your
Yeah,
little tokens.
that's why I thought
It's
about this.
exactly that, but instead of your tokens, it's this, and instead of
And like,
it,
you would have little skeletons too, or no?
Yep, I have a lot of skeletons actually right now. I probably will,
Skeleton army.
I'll probably pick up more soon actually.
Why not?
Gets
man? Why
pricey
not?
though. But yeah, that's how I play. Like, I'll have a battle mat out. I'll have like 6 different color markers. I do some terrain building, so I have like a bunch of trees and like rocks that I take out and place on the mat. And like I
And
do,
this is for when you do
this is for,
DMing in person.
Yep, this is for in person.
It's pretty cool.
And like, keep in mind, you don't need any of that to play the game. You can just sit around and just do all theater of the mind. But
I like that.
having a battle mat does help a lot. And keeps it grounded in the game.
Yeah.
So, as for preparing to run your first game, we touched on like some stuff you'll need. You guys have any questions about that?
But
My question is just about cost, I guess. Like, how much have you spent, do you think?
How much have I spent? Or how
Yeah,
much
like
do
you
need
personally.
Okay,
Well, you can answer both of those, like,
I
for a
want to know.
beginner and what you have spent.
okay, so for a beginner, you would need to spend roughly, for the bare minimum, probably like $12 on dice.
I'm gonna check Amazon right now.
These
D&D
dice cost me
Dice set.
like $6 at my hobby shop. But like, as a DM, you're gonna want more. I would suggest you 2 sets to start playing, or start running the game. 1 set to start playing. Dollar store pen, paper, and that's really all you need. You could get free basic rules online. With D&D Beyond, you have access to some basic monsters, the basic classes. You can download the character sheets for free online off the D&D website. So I would say like aim around like $10 to start playing. And there's even then you can get digital dice apps for free.
Yeah.
So you can start playing for free. You can start running for free.
I got I'm on Amazon right now.
Mhm.
There's a Dungeons and Dragons starter set. Includes 6 dice, 5 ready-to-play D&D characters.
Yep.
With character sheets and a rule book for $20.
Yep.
Just to start the game like that.
I picked up my first starter set for D&D when I was on a vacation in Toronto. There's just a random bookstore in the Underground Mall, and I just went, "Oh, D&D set, $25. I'll buy it." And
well, we think about it. You really only need the dice and like a flat table.
Yeah.
Really, if you're with a bunch of people, because then you could like put like a cup as a tree or something. Just use your imagination a bit more, and have these other trains. Like you're building your own set pieces and stuff. You just have random things around the house. You can use like fish crackers as the bad guys.
Okay, so like a really cheap way to start with a battle mat, you go to Staples. They have.
I work there.
Yeah, so you would know. You have like the giant. You know how like teachers have the giant grid paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally bought. I went there one day, bought 3 of those, and a pack of Sharpies.
Because you can just rip it up and like place it around a table.
Yeah.
Put like 4 sheets
and then,
out.
Like, I was playing with one guy that his mini was a tiny jar of Tabasco, and that was that was always his character. There's some people that will use like Smarties as the monsters. Then when you kill it, you get to eat the Smartie.
Okay, sounds like my kind
why
of.
Not like $100 bills or something? That'd be more fun. I'd play.
Yeah, but who's gonna
fund that?
Who's gonna even run encounters for that?
Well, like,
So,
I would.
But,
I'd do the DM and be playing.
Yeah, no, you never want to do that.
A solo adventure.
Anyways, to answer Evan's question about how much I personally have spent,
I'm so excited.
God.
Is it more or less okay? Without saying how much.
How about you guys guess?
Is it more or less than what I've spent on League?
How much is that?
I spent $2K on League.
Is it more or less than what Zach has spent on League?
It's definitely more.
It has to be. Look at his face.
Dude, I think he's
Look at that cute face.
He's dropped more than that in one session. Like,
Definitely not.
definitely
It's
not.
probably like 5 to 10K.
Okay.
There could be some like
5K, you think?
No,
I think 5.
He's under 5.
I'm under 5 over 2. I want to see like around like 2,500 total. But keep in mind, I also play Warhammer, and a lot of the minis from that I use in D&D, and vice versa. So there is overlap there. But like my metal dice is $300 for just my metal dice.
It's pretty fancy. You're a fancy man.
The female wizard mini, I paid $40 for this. Then it came with a set, another one. And that mini is older than I am. It was made in '91, so it's 4 years older than me.
Well, for all y'all watching, do the math. Now you know what Luke is. He might look older.
Oh, man. Okay, yeah. So like, anyways, the cost to get into it as a DM, you're probably sinking $10. If you want to play as cheap as possible, I would suggest you at least pick up the Monster Manual Player's Handbook, which is about $120 total, with $60 a book.
It's not bad.
Plus, and with dice, oftentimes the local game stores will have like new player deals where you get the player's handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual, a set of dice, maybe more with some minis. You get about, that's probably like all that for $150, which is a steal. So unless you already have the stuff, I would suggest picking it up.
It's a lot cheaper than like starting a new sport to play and buy all that equipment, or building a computer, or buying a computer. If you want to do like video games and other stuff, it's pretty cool. It's more expensive than like other, I guess, like board games, I'll call it in a way. Like I can go to buy Monopoly for like $10.
Yeah, well, like, okay, so then let me give you this question. Can you get 5 years plus enjoyment out of Monopoly?
No, I'd be too bored beating everybody.
Yeah, you barely get a game enjoyment out of it.
I don't even get one game. I rage.
Yeah, so like
Andre rages at League.
If
so it's
I'm
fine.
not running the table after 2 times around the block, I'm pissed.
yeah. But like, okay, think of it like that. How many board games can you get nowadays, especially that's 120 or less, that you can get countless years of enjoyment out of?
Chess.
Can you?
I mean, chess is like the oldest. Wait,
It's not the oldest board game.
not the oldest game, but like
How about some Jenga?
oldest board game. No, I'm pretty sure it is.
I enjoy chess.
It's not the
I could
oldest
play it
board
forever.
game.
What it is?
What is the oldest board game?
I'm pretty sure it is.
It's not chess. Or chess.
I'm intrigued now.
It's, I think, like a Egyptian or Roman game. It's a racing game.
Senate?
Senate.
Yep. That's
Senate.
it.
It's originating
Over
in ancient
5,000 years
Egypt.
ago.
10th century.
That's almost as old as Luke.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, so
The
like
oldest board game in America is backgammon.
that game is fun actually. But like board games that like you won't get
Chess.
You won't be able to get countless years of enjoyment of chess. Like D&D, you get countless years of enjoyment out of. Like there's so many. It's very rare that you'll ever have 2 exact same scenarios.
Yeah. Well, because it's gonna be different every time.
Yeah. And you're telling a story.
Because you think about it, you could be the GM or DM. I mean,
Mhm.
every time you could have different players, which each different player will have
Okay.
a different idea of how they want to play and stuff like
A
that.
perfect example of this is I ran the exact same dungeon for 5 different groups of players, and each one went about the dungeon differently.
Genius.
Like, and some of the players, like, I think one player went through the dungeon 3 times, and after the first time, they're like, okay, I'm going to take a back seat because I just want to watch what happens. But it was literally word for word the exact same dungeon.
Yeah.
And each group did it differently. Like, half the time I don't expect what you guys are going to do. I provide
Yeah.
possible solutions. Like, okay, let's say the bridge encounter that you guys had. Not the one with the griffin, the one with the fallen bridge, the classic one. That's the first time a group has decided to make their own bridge of trees.
Ever?
What did they normally do?
The first time, their decision was to take their crossbow, shoot it into the plank across, and like pull it tight, and like rebuild the bridge somehow. And they
You're saying somehow.
like like it was like 5 years ago, dude. I don't remember exactly what happened. All I remember is they shot the crossbow and pulled the bridge. Another group, it was kind of similar, but they shot the crossbow into the tree on the other side, and tied it off and went across that way.
I wanted to throw the thrill, man. We could have been the first group ever to throw a halfling across the
You wouldn't. He would have went like 20 feet and then fell into the water and died.
It's win-win.
But
It is.
the last time I ran it, they had a mage that had mold earth, which lets you just move like a 5-foot square of dirt. So he basically just ferried people back and forth the whole time. And like, yeah, sure, that works. There's countless ways to go about it. Okay, so I'm going to dive into your new DM. You're playing your first game. You're going to do a one-shot. What do you do? In my experience, it's best to either have like a short one-shot quest where it's, oh, I need you to travel to this place, kill something, come back, for example. Or blacksmith dollar's missing, kidnapped by goblins, go find them, rescue her. Or bring this sword to the wizard. All of those are perfect examples. But the one that I love doing the most for a one-shot for new players is a dungeon. So, when you're making a dungeon, you want to make it somewhat alive. You don't want to make it static. So, you want to know which creatures live in there, and you want to know what it was before. Oftentimes, it's a crypt for a small village, or a royal family's tomb that's been run over by goblins. Then you think, okay, so what do the goblins need? They need a place to sleep, they need a place to eat, they need guards that are on rotation, who's the leader, and what are they doing in there? And then if there's any like fun little secrets.
Yeah.
I would suggest you put in at least 2 traps. The first one, a mild inconvenience, just to show them, yes, this place is trapped, you should be careful. And then one that's a little bit more dangerous. I would put in an encounter where they get an ambush advantage. One where they get ambushed. Maybe a boss fight for combat. So they have 3 combats, 2 traps, and then I'll put in a small puzzle. Like, not like some Sudoku thing. Not a complicated puzzle. Like junior kindergarten levels of puzzle. Because anything higher and your players will break.
Probably.
Like, make it a riddle. And then there you have 6 encounters. Encounters being something that stops your progress. And that way your players get a little taste of everything. And you make 2 easy combat encounters, 1 hard. Go nuts. Have fun with it. So do you guys have any questions about making an encounter, making a dungeon, preparing your first session? Outside of like the physical stuff you need, like the actual content of the game.
Do you ever just like permanent or purposely put obstacles to like kill off people, like as a personal vendetta?
Only if the player is being a real... Oh, what's the right word should I use for this for stream?
Douchebag.
Yeah, let's go with douchebag. But
Or an Andre.
no, not hiding under a bridge while your comrades fight something. If that happens more than once, okay, there's going to be piranhas in that water. Or something. But I have never needed to put in an encounter to kill off one character.
What if you're just like fed up with the campaign? Like you don't like what your players have been doing or anything like that? So you just make it impossible, like so it's just game over no matter what. Have you ever done one of those?
No, I would express to my players like, I'm not having fun with this campaign anymore. And oftentimes if the DM's not having fun, the players aren't having fun and vice versa.
So you're being mature about it.
I'm mature about it. I'll say, I'm not having fun with this campaign anymore. Do you guys have any ideas of how we can spice this up for us? Or how are you guys feeling about the campaign right now? Like, there's plenty of mature ways to go about it. Number one way is just talk to your players. And if you're a player that has an issue, talk to your DM. Or find a different group. Like, there's countless groups out there looking for players.
What's the max number of players you can have in a group? Or that you would allow, I guess, as the DM?
Okay, so the most I'm comfortable running for is 6. That's my limit. I ran for 8, I ran for 9, I ran for 10, and it sucks. I'm overwhelmed, like the game bogs down, I don't have fun, the players don't have fun. 6 is my max. My DM that I play for, his max is like 7 or 8. I've played in games where the DM's max is 4 people. I've played in a game that literally had 12 players, and the DM was so overwhelmed he just called it off. He's like, I can't do this. Like, we're gonna have to split this group.
Yeah. It's a lot to, I guess,
but
control in a way.
At the same time, I've seen people run games for 15 people, no problem. So, like, number of players, it's something you're gonna have to learn. In fact, like, all of DMing is just a learning experience.
Yeah.
Like, think of it as a muscle. The more you use it, the better it's going to be.
Genius.
So that's why I say your first game isn't going to be as good as your 10th game, 100th game. Like, it's not going to be something you master right off the bat or overnight. It's going to take years.
Sure.
I've been DMing for 5 years and I still have found there's still things I want to improve on as a DM.
Yeah.
What do you think your biggest weaknesses and your biggest strengths are as a DM?
Biggest weakness is that I tend to underprepare too much.
How so?
I usually just go into the game with a rough idea of what I want to happen. Whereas games where I prepare slightly, just enough, are a lot better. I don't over-prepare my games because that's a waste of time. But there's been times when I've ran a league game, which is just random group of people, or like a rotating group of characters, bunch of one-shots, and I go in completely blind. Catherine has played in some of those games. But
Thanks for the invite.
you guys... This was like a year or two ago?
Yeah, I only know you a year ago, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was. Well, I met Catherine through school. It was like first semester, like October-ish.
What would you consider Christmas Land? Because that was an interesting D&D thing. I remember it was a part of that. That was some.
Okay.
I feel like you were mad at us.
No, you guys didn't play in Christmas Land.
Yeah, we did.
No?
Yeah.
It wasn't Christmas.
Christmas Land was Pokemon.
Or no.
No.
I did something.
No, it
wasn't
wasn't Christmas Land. It was a different land. Okay.
What was it?
At the end, I'll go into horror stories and epic stories later on. But biggest strength, I feel like I'm really good at coming up with an overarching story. And I'm good at making interesting encounters. My main issue is I don't take notes during games, so I just forget stuff a lot. And that's a big issue for me.
Like, what would you consider important to remember?
Just, like stuff that... there's one time...
If someone uses, like, a spell, and then...
Nope, that is the player's responsibility to keep track of. Like, major story details. Sometimes I forget them. Not for the overarching plot, but like clues and hints. So, like, something I need to work on is preparing slightly more. And taking notes. Do you guys have
What do you think your strength?
Strength?
Yeah.
I'm good at doing overarching stories and encounters.
Okay.
Any other questions before we get into story time?
I can't think of any.
Go for it.
Okay. So let's start with... Okay, let's do the one game, the one I mentioned earlier, which was the game with Catherine that I just made everything up on the spot. So, in D&D, there's these things called mimics. They essentially are creatures that will disguise themselves as ordinary objects, and then when something goes around and touches them, it eats them. I made, on the top of my head, was a dungeon where it was just pretty much anything in there could be a mimic. Like, it was I remember it being a pyramid, and the players went inside. They went to the first room, and inside was like a bunch of taxidermy jars, like really Egyptian stuff. But some of them were mimics. And then that sort of, I guess, instilled the sense of, okay, we have to be careful, there's going to be a lot of traps in this dungeon. The next room, there was an open rotting corpse on a table, and one of the players found something that will tell them if there's a mimic nearby. So it's more jars, more mimics, and the players, like, they poked every single jar. None of them were mimics. They searched through them until one player said that they want to search the body on the table. That was the mimic. this continued on for several more rooms. Then they get to the last room at the top of the pyramid, which is a invisible maze, but some of the walls are mimics. And at this point, everyone's getting sick of the mimics, but they're also loving it because repetition's funny.
Yeah.
Then they get to the treasure room, and there's 2 piles of treasure. I originally set this up to be one pile's a mimic, one's not. The players caught on to that super quickly. So before they checked it, they like poked it with a stick. Nothing happened. They're both actual treasure piles. So they start searching through them. Nothing happens till one of them finds a jar of like a pink liquid, and that was a mimic in a bottle. And I think that player still has it to this day. I'm not 100% sure what they used it for, or if they used it, but I think they still have it.
I guess we got no stories to share because we've only done 3 rounds of it, or 3 shots, I guess is what you call them.
Sessions.
Sessions.
Yep. 4 sessions so far. Okay, so...
Are we your best group yet?
Nope. Nope.
That's fair.
Nice.
That's fair.
Yeah, well, you're the worst DM ever.
Wait, so
You're the worst DM yet.
Yeah, you're the worst DM I've ever had.
Yeah, you idiot.
Hey, I take that with pride.
The only DM I've ever had.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty sad, Andre. You never got a message before?
What's that?
It's pretty sad you never got a message before.
Sure.
Get flamed, idiot.
Wow. Wow. Okay, whatever. I'll have you know, Zachary Dillon DM'd me earlier today about golf. So, yeah. That happened. Yes. Okay. Anyways, what was the thing that we did earlier? Or like last year?
Last year for what?
D&D, because I was a part of it, I remember.
Oh, that was a one-shot. So that was... At the time, I was doing a lot of D&D for the esports club. Just sort of like... Try to bring people in to the club. So that was a one-shot. I don't remember much about what happened. Other than you guys just never left. You guys couldn't get out of the tavern because you all wanted to kill each other.
I think I was a rogue, and I kept trying to like steal from people and him, and then I fought him, and then I that's all I remember, really, to be honest. Oh, I remember a cyclops or something, and I like jumped on its back. That's all. That's literally all I remember.
First level. There's probably an ogre.
Are you sure?
I would definitely not send a cyclops after first level players.
Okay.
They're way too
strong. I just remember something like that.
It's pretty
I think there's a reason I don't remember it. I think I blocked it on my memory. Yeah. So let me think of... Okay. I can't think of any stories right now, so if you guys have any last questions about potential stories I might have about my various games, or just DMing in general.
Any sneak peeks for next week's episode? For
yes,
viewers?
Actually.
Okay.
You guys may or may not be climbing a mountain.
That's it?
That's all I'm going to tell you.
What's on that mountain?
Trees.
And rock.
Are there mountain goats?
Creatures? Any babies?
Probably not. Or they could be. I know what's. I did have stuff planned for tonight, but unfortunately, since Catherine couldn't make it, I don't want to do a stream a game with only 3 people.
Yeah.
Then we'd be leaving her behind.
Well, no. So, a rule that my DM made and that I adapted was if someone's not there, they're in a shadow. So
they're still coming along.
Their character comes along. They're not affected in combat. They don't role play at all. They just, when they come back, they're back. But other than that, they're just not there.
What if the whole group dies?
Then it's considered a TPK. And if you miss a session, that's something you got to accept. Like, you may not have control over if the whole group dies or not.
Gotcha.
But a good DM will a good DM that uses the shadow rule will either make the encounter slightly easier if it was going to be a very hard encounter. That's how I run it. That's how my DM runs it. Plenty of groups say, okay, who's running your character for you in combat? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? For you.
So basically, you got your D&D ideas and skills, I guess, from your previous ones as well.
Well, I was a DM before I was ever a player.
But you learned some more watching somebody else do it.
I've learned so much from my DM. He's often in chat watching streams sometimes, so. But he's also a player in my game.
It's pretty exciting.
So we both learn off each other when it comes to DMing and playing, which is a good combo to have.
That is good.
You guys have any other questions?
Could D&D be an esport? Or be as big as an esport?
Well, one, it's bigger than most esports out there, so.
Wow. Never mind then. Okay, question answered.
It's already bigger than most esports.
Nice.
Think of it like this. Okay, what's the biggest esport right now?
Probably League.
League, let's say League, Fortnite.
Definitely League over Fortnite for sure.
Yeah, well, let's say both. Okay, let's say League and Fortnite. That's the 2 biggest ones.
Mm-hmm.
You can go up to someone and be like, okay, what's League of Legends? Some random guy off the street. If they don't play, chances are they don't know. What's Fortnite? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's that game my grandson plays, my son plays.
Mm-hmm.
What's D&D?
The game I play.
It's depending on how old they are. They'll say, oh, it's that devil worship game.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's that role-playing game. And then there's sort of a middle period where I've heard of it. I don't know what it is. Is it like a video game or something? But recently it had a huge resurgence.
Yeah.
So we'll let you guys ask as many questions as you want about DMing or D&D in general at this point, and then we'll go off with. I'll end the stream with a few quick tips. So if you guys have any questions, fire away. If not, I can.
I don't think I have any more questions, to be honest.
Okay, doesn't seem like we have questions. Okay, so for new DMs looking to run a game for their friends, or for players that are remotely interested in D&D through stuff like Critical Role and other shows, those DMs have been running the game for so long, they have mastered their craft. So, biggest piece of advice, you're not them. You could try to copy and emulate them and see if you can pick up on what they're doing to make their games interesting, but don't feel pressured to run exactly like them and have their types of games, because starting out, you will not. You won't even come close. Run your game so you can have fun with it. Because if the DM has fun, the players have fun. And if the players are having fun, the DM has fun. There's nothing more rewarding to a DM when a player says, that session was great. That's sort of like, that just reinsures the DM that they're doing a good job and to keep going forward. Avoid DM PCs. A lot of times players get a little bit too crazy with their characters and what they want to do. And that will most likely break the game, especially for a new DM that doesn't know how to handle it. So you can say, I'm not saying say no, even though saying no is important. You can say no, but give them something that's along the same lines of what they want to do, but more realistic for their abilities. Like, a level 1 rogue can't go kill the king.
Yeah.
But the level 1 rogue can make up a story, say they're a king from a distant land. And you give players feedback on what they should and shouldn't be doing in your game. After all, it is your game. If a player isn't behaving how you want, you have every right to kick them out.
Yeah.
I have kicked out, I think, 2 players total so far.
Reasons?
Okay. So, one of them, he was making some other players feel uncomfortable. So, in both my groups, it's mostly female players. Which is, one, super rare in D&D, but also, like, God, come on, just be respectful. Like, it got to the point where players were switching seats to sort of avoid problem player. So I'm like, okay, I'll see if I can fix this. And I talked to them.
Between 2 dudes.
So, what I did, the game was six people. My DM, my friend, and then the 3 female players. And then problem player. So, one day I noticed, like, as soon as problem players showed up, 2 of the players switched seats, 2 of the female players. So after the game, I messaged them privately about it. I was like, hey, is there something going on? Is there anything I should know about? And then one of the players said, okay, this player's making me feel uncomfortable. Whatnot, I'm like, okay, so what I could do is talk to the 2 other male players and have them sit as a barrier. That worked, and it wasn't so much me kicking him out as he just left after that. So it's one kind
Did
of.
he know? Did he know why?
Like the way that the game has been going, where everyone has the same spot, and then this happens like a week or two after. I think he picked up on it and he left the group.
Gotcha. What was the other?
The other one wasn't me kicking up current player out. It was me saying no to a player joining. It was me running a game. I'm setting up I guess I'm still in the building phases of the actual player base. And this guy wants to join. I'm like, okay, fine. Then he asked me if I allow homebrew. I'm like, yeah, I allow homebrew within reason. I write homebrew. I consider the playtest material to be homebrew, which I allow. So if you have homebrew you want to play, bring it to me. If I approve it, yeah, you can play it. But I reserve the right to tweak it. This guy comes up to me with this binder that's huge. Like, probably yay big.
Oh boy.
Of all homebrew. And he goes to a tab, flips it open, and goes, playable dragons in D&D. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to be humored and I'm going to read through this. I start flipping through it. Literally, the class was level 1. You get the equivalent of 3 different fighting styles from the fighter put into one, plus spellcasting. I'm like, okay, that's way too broken. So I'm like, as I'm flipping through, I'm like, so far everything I'm reading seems way too strong. And then I flip one page too far, and the next thing I see is D&D 5e, My Little Pony. So I'm like, so at that point I just close the book and go, it seems like you're pretty hard set on playing a dragon and playing this homebrew, right? He goes, yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to allow it. If you want to play something remotely close to a dragon, this is what I suggest. But if you're that set on it, then this game's not going to be for you. And he goes, okay, and he left.
Okay.
And then I go back to, at the time it was my 2 friends and my DM. At the table I go back and I just go, he wanted to play a dragon. And I tell the story to them. But those are the only 2 times I had to kick a player out.
I see.
Luckily, it never got to the point of it being a confrontation. But as a DM, it's my job to make sure my players are comfortable.
Yep.
So that actually brings me to another tip. As a DM, you should always have a session 0 and talk about boundaries in the game. For me, I don't like any of my characters being in any romance with other players, characters, or NPCs.
Smart.
It's just not what I just don't like. It just feels weird. Like, I don't even like my characters doing the sex.
Andre, it's not allowed anymore, buddy.
Okay.
You and Evan gotta stop.
You and your 6 inches?
Hold up.
Okay. Jokes
Pause.
are fine. But, like, I don't like my characters doing that. The most it goes is, okay, it happened, let's move on. There's some players that want to go into detail.
I can see how that can get weird.
Yeah.
That's
So,
the wrong kind of roleplay.
yeah, it gets into pretty weird spots. I had one player that really just wanted to roleplay him trying to pick up chicks. But as a DM, I sort of like forced the hand of like, yeah, it always fails. It's distracting from the game. I don't want to roleplay it. But he did it so much, I straight up said, you know, it's kind of sad that you feel the need to do this in my game and not in the real world. Anyways, we'll end this conversation there. So,
yeah.
thank you for all coming out. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you learned something.
I sure did.
Next week, we have Lore Masters again. I have no clue what we're even going to talk about. We'll
think about it.
We covered what the new players can look into and new DMs can look into. I understand like this was a pretty long-winded and rambly episode, but sometimes those will happen. But there's plenty of resources for DMs, new DMs to use and look into. And just biggest tip of all, you're gonna grow as a DM. If you like it, great. Keep running games, get better. So
yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching. And we hope to see you again soon.
Also, be sure, if you haven't seen the show already and you're just seeing Lore Masters, go and check out the past broadcasts and you can see the adventure that we've been on so far.
You can see the adventure. Even watch the old Lore Masters if you're interested in being a player. We talk about all the player classes. Okay.
Also, apparently, this is a relevant statistic. If we mention the words like and subscribe, they are significantly more likely to happen. So if you haven't, go click the subscribe button. I think. Wait, I think it's right.
It's
right there. Like that way. Wait.
It's not behind you, Andre.
Trying to. It's like there. It should be like there. Yeah. Like right.
A little bit more down. A little bit. No. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Right about there.
Right there. Click that button. Yeah. See, I see. I just saw a light go up. Okay, it worked. See, I told you. Okay, yeah.
Yep. Take care, everyone.
Guacamole.